On the day the will was to be read, my sister turned to me and said, "You're not going to get anything, you know?" This phrase, which my wife used almost identically, would come to mind later. But at the door of the house, with the red and blue flash of the car illuminating the sidewalk and the policeman looking at me with an expression of prior judgment, the sentence I heard was even colder. My wife, Cynthia, 15 years his junior and a master of cheap melodrama, put her hand on her arm and said to the officer, her voice choked at just the right point to sound panicked, "He tried to hurt me." The policeman waved, his pen hovering over the notepad. She looked at me as if she'd already won the match, as if that accusation was the final shot that would take everything away from me, my name, my career, and the peace I had painstakingly rebuilt. She was sure that it was enough to point the finger. After all, in the United States, most of the time, a woman's word is enough to start a process of destruction, and that was her plan all along. I'm David. I am a senior anesthesiologist at one of Chicago's most respected hospitals. My specialty is trauma. I work daily with wounds, bruises, injuries, and physiological reactions of the human body. It's my job to recognize patterns, diagnose the source of pain, and understand the difference between an accidental, a real one, and a fabricated one. At that moment, as she displayed the mark on her forearm to the officer, my professional brain took over, ignoring the anger and dread of the situation, the asymmetry of the lesion, the superficial depth, the almost complete absence of edema, and the specific geometric shape. Everything screamed the same thing: fraud. The mark was not compatible with the kinetics of a fight or the grip of a man trying to defend himself. It was a self-inflicted injury, a clean scratch, with controlled force and direction. I am the anesthesiologist who looks at the patient and knows exactly what happened, and what I saw on Cynthia's arm was the signature of the manipulation. I'm the husband who, in the last 3 months, started putting together the pieces of a puzzle that I didn't want to put together. I'm the man who, against my gut, kept my mouth shut while my wife started acting strangely. Objects that fell mysteriously and broke in the bathroom, doors that got damaged, and at the height of the theater, that day when she intentionally stepped on a shard of glass to make a superficial bleed, and then she called a friend crying about the aggression. I was not a naive man, just a man who, after the death of my first wife, had let his guard down, mistaken attraction and youthful energy for character and loyalty. I am the man who thought that love could transform a person who saw marriage as a ladder. I am the person who installed discreet security cameras in the house, not out of paranoia, but out of professional experience. It is known that in cases of dispute over inheritance or divorce, the first thing the weaker party tries to do is to create a history of violence. They spoke as if I were invisible. Cynthia acted like I wasn't there, like I was just an obstacle to be removed with a fake 911. She was so focused on herself, so sure of easy victory, that she ignored the anesthesiologist, the specialist in anatomy, body reaction, and pain concealment, right in front of her. The policeman stepped forward. "Mr. Davis," he said, his voice full of authority, "your wife is alleging assault. I need to hear your version now." I saw the twinkle in Cynthia's eyes, that "now it's over" look. She crossed her arms over her chest, an image of fragility and indignation, and tilted her head, ready to see me handcuffed. But at that moment I stopped being a victim. I became an observer. I took a deep breath and looked directly at the officer, ignoring Cynthia. "I didn't touch her, officer. And if you take a closer look at that injury, you will see that it's not defensive. It's a forced injury. I am a senior anesthesiologist. I understand trauma. That wasn't caused by me." The policeman hesitated. It was too technical a defense for an emotional situation. He looked down at Cynthia's arm again. "Cynthia," he said bluntly, "can you tell me exactly how this happened? What was the action that caused this mark?" She faltered for a second, forced off script. He pushed me against the wall," she stammered, "and held my arm tightly to stop me from reaching for my phone." "What part of the wall?" asked the policeman coldly. "The one in the hallway. What about your cell phone? Where is he now?" "In the car. I picked him up when I got out." That's when a second police officer who was in the garage checking the car came out of the darkness. He was holding an item in a sealed plastic bag, a cell phone. The second policeman approached, his face expressionless. He was holding Cynthia's cell phone, an expensive model I had given her. "Officer Miller," he told the first officer, "we found it in the car. It was on." There seems to be relevant evidence here. The phone was in recording mode, filming all the time, and there are recent files that can help understand the context. Cynthia's heart stopped beating at the same moment mine started racing. The blood disappeared from his face. I saw her swallow, her eyes fixed on her cell phone in the bag. I knew exactly what was there. During the week she engineered this charade, she didn't realize that the anesthesiologist wasn't just watching the wounds. I was also reading her messages, deleted but recoverable. I had seen the exchange of texts with her lover, a divorce lawyer, advising her to build a history. I had seen the voice recording where she rehearsed the perfect cry for the 911 call. But there was one thing I hadn't seen. One thing the second cop was about to reveal. Officer Miller, noticing the sudden change in Cynthia's countenance, who went from an outraged victim to a wax statue, waved to his colleague. "What did you find?" "A video file called Take 4, the second officer said, unlocking the device. He pressed play and held up his phone so both officers could see. I realized that I didn't have to win by shouting. The video began to rotate. On the screen was the kitchen counter. The lighting was clear. Cynthia appeared alone, adjusting the angle of the phone. She was wearing the same shirt she was wearing at that moment. She straightened her hair, and then the victim's base was unmasked. She picked up a thin, metallic object. It looked like one of those miniature gardening tools she used for the herb pots on the porch. She positioned the tip on her forearm and pressed hard, moving the object slowly to create the jagged line. A whimper of forced pain escaped her throat on the recording. She wasn't just hurting herself, she was rehearsing. "No, too weak," she said to herself on the recording, her voice clear and without the crying. She pressed again, deeper, and the injury she displayed to the officer formed on the screen. "Perfect," she whispered on the recording, smiling into her phone. "It's going to be perfect." The silence that followed at the door of my house was louder than any scream she could have given. The lights of the car, once symbols of his imminent victory, now only highlighted the gray and dead color of his face. The smile of arrogance had vanished. The hand that held the victim's fake arm began to tremble uncontrollably. The lie, rehearsed, choreographed and recorded, was now his greatest enemy. Officer Miller turned slowly, first to the screen, then to Cynthia, who seemed to have shrunk in size. "Do you want to rephrase your accusation, Mrs. Davis?" His voice was dry, emotionless, but loaded with a weight that only revealed truth carries. She couldn't answer. The voice disappeared. The humiliation hit her like a shockwave. The whole plan, to destroy my life, ruin me financially, take the fortune I had built with years of dedication and sacrifice, fell apart in seconds. I looked at her. I was silent, but inside me something screamed. Not a cry of triumph, but of a deep and dirty pain of seeing human degradation at its lowest point. The accusation of domestic assault, the emergency call, the staging at the door of the house. It was all a ruse, a calculated means to force my removal, to secure a restraining order, and thus to facilitate divorce and the division of property. They wanted to hurry. I had time. They wanted quick fortune. I was playing for the long haul, gathering the evidence while she distracted herself from her own performance. Officer Miller picked up the radio. "We have a situation of false denunciation. I need a supervisor here. The victim is the accused." The word false report sounded louder than the moan Cynthia finally managed to let out. She tried to babble something, but Miller interrupted her with a firm gesture. "Anything you say from now on will be used against you, Ms. Davis. Be silent." She, the manipulator, the queen of drama, was being forced to shut up by the same system she tried to use. I took a step back, leaning on the doorframe. There was no satisfaction in victory, only the weariness of a battle that I knew was not yet over. The arrival of the police supervisor turned the sidewalk of my house into an administrative crime scene. The attention was no longer on me, the alleged aggressor, but on Cynthia, the failed actress. She was now sitting in the back of the patrol car, not handcuffed but in precautionary confinement while officers processed the situation. The cell phone, the irrefutable proof of his frame-up, was being documented and sealed as primary evidence. I realized that my battle wasn't just against my wife. It was against the automatic belief in the theater she staged. I am a man of science. I work with facts and evidence. And it was the technical evidence, the video recording of herself and my own analysis of the injury as an anesthesiologist, that saved me. While one of the police officers took the formal statement from me, I reinforced the context. I explained the difference between a defensive hematoma and a forced incision. I detailed my work and my familiarity with trauma. I mentioned that I had noticed the pattern of accidents in recent weeks, but I had refrained from confronting her directly, knowing that it would only accelerate her plan. I hadn't attacked. I was collecting data. They had greed. I had the documents. I didn't just mention video recording. I also handed the officer copies of the deleted text messages, which I had retrieved through a data forensics service, the messages with her lover, the lawyer, where he instructed her to escalate the incident and to ensure that there is a restraining order so that he cannot contest the sharing. I delivered everything in a sealed envelope, methodically, with the calmness of a surgeon before a routine operation, without screaming, without crying, without despairing. I had become a cold observer of the collapse of my own marriage. While the police were doing their job, I could see some neighbors watching through the window. They saw Cynthia being taken to the patrol car. They heard the silence that followed the dramatic climax she had planned. The humiliation was not only mine, but also hers, in plain sight. The supervisor approached me. "Mr. Davis, you were correct. It is a self-harm, and the evidence on the cell phone is irrefutable. Our investigation now shifts focus to Ms. Davis and the charge of false reporting in course of justice. The state takes this very seriously, especially when it involves mobilizing emergency resources." I nodded, without triumphalism. I had just survived an attempted character assassination. I realized that I didn't have to win by shouting. From that moment on, the dynamics changed completely. It was no longer David versus Cynthia in divorce. It was the state versus Cynthia, with David as the victim and main witness. She had set in motion a system that she thought she could control, but which, due to her own arrogance and lack of perception, turned against her. She was so confident that the self-inflicted injury would be accepted in the heat of themament, that she didn't anticipate that I, the injury specialist, would be on the scene. She didn't realize that the technology she used to rehearse the hoax would be proof of her betrayal and manipulation. She thought she was playing chess. I was playing a different game with much cooler, fact-based rules. That moment at the door of the house was the outcome of my story with her. There was no exchange of words between us after the recording was revealed. His voice was lost, his posture broke. The drama queen was silenced by her own performance. The supervisor asked me if I needed medical care. I said no. I needed something much more important, the formal record of that night. "We're going to make sure this is fully documented, Dr. Davis. You have our report number. Your lawyers should contact us tomorrow." "Thank you, officer," I said. The patrol car drove off, taking Cynthia and the evidence of her ruin. Silence returned to the street. Only the cold smell of the Chicago night and the stain of red and blue light on the sidewalk, now gone, attested to what had occurred. I entered the house, alone. In the silence of the house, for the first time in months, I felt peace. The brutal peace of those who know that the worst part is over, and that the truth, cold and technical, had prevailed over the emotional lie. From that moment on, divorce became a formality. Cynthia's lawyer, the one who instructed her to commit a crime, quickly backed down. The risk of being prosecuted for encouraging false reporting was real and imminent. She was alone, without the legal support that had encouraged her. She had bet everything on the lie and lost the moment the second policeman pressed play. I sat down in my armchair. I looked around at the house, my home, which she had tried to dirty with violence and lies. At that moment, I stopped being a victim. I became an observer of the silent justice process. The lesson was short and strong. Fooling a tired man is easy. It is difficult to beat a man who has woken up and is armed with science and proof of his own betrayal. Cynthia believed that youth and the ability to make drama were her greatest weapons. She did not count on the coldness of technical analysis and the relentlessness of digital evidence. She didn't know that. While she looked in the mirror to rehearse crying, I was reading between the lines of her soul. My revenge was not to fight, it was to let them lose alone. The divorce proceedings went surprisingly quickly and favorably. The judge, seeing the police report and the video recording, was clear. The attempt at procedural fraud and the false complaint of domestic violence were enough to annul any claim of hers to a fair sharing. Not only that, but she had to bear most of the legal costs. She left the marriage with what she brought. Nothing more. Her greed left her empty-handed. I continued my life and my work. The story became a whisper in the hospital corridors, but it was a whisper that exonerated me. I was not the aggressor. I was the victim of a sordid fraud. The reputation she tried to destroy was restored by the coldness of the facts. Cynthia's case, the false allegation, served as a grim reminder to all involved. Sometimes the best answer is written in a notary's office, or in this case, engraved on the kitchen counter and proven by science. She tried to blame me, but it ended up destroyed by the very recording that she believed no one would ever find. The door closed the chapter. What remained was the lesson and the peace. If it were you, would he have signed the divorce quickly or let her record her own destruction? I entered the house alone, and the silence was not one of emptiness, but of relief. But Cynthia's story didn't end at the door of my house with the car driving away. She had set in motion a lawsuit that she could no longer stop, and her humiliation was still unfolding. The next day, my lawyer, Thomas, called me in a tone of voice I had never heard before. Amused, "David, you have outdone yourself." What this woman did was a monumental miscalculation. The prosecutor is furious at the loss of time and resources. A false report with video proof of self-injury? This is considered a serious offense here in Illinois, especially when it comes to domestic violence. I felt like I didn't have to win by shouting. The system would do that for me. The next step was the restraining order. Cynthia, the alleged victim, tried to get one against me, but instead the judge on duty, in reviewing the police dossier, reversed the order. I obtained a temporary restraining order against her. She was forbidden to approach the house, my place of work, and to contact me. The humiliation deepened when she tried to return to pick up her belongings. She had Toby escorted by a bailiff under my supervision to take only personal items and nothing else. I watched impassively as she tried to maintain her dignity before the officer. Other eyes showed the dread and anger of defeat. She had to pack her clothes and makeup while the officer timed every minute, ensuring that she did not take any valuables or important documents. She was forbidden to touch the files on the computer, my folders, anything that could be used for further sabotage. She grumbled about the injustice, about how I was taking everything from her. The officer just stared at her coldly. "The decision is not mine, Ms. Davis. Just follow what has been determined." They spoke as if I were invisible, but I was there, the observer. She left the house where she dreamed of being the queen, dragging a suitcase on wheels and a designer bag under the curious eyes of the neighbors. The scene she planned for me, to be taken out in handcuffs, came to fruition for her, albeit in a more excellent and painful way. The divorce accelerated. The lover, that unscrupulous lawyer, disappeared. He refused to represent her due to the risk of criminal implication. She was left without lawyers, forced to deal with the situation pro se, alone, against the strength of my senior law firm. She tried to argue about the love and sacrifice she had made, but the judge only pointed to the police report. Ms. Davis attempted to defraud this court with a false allegation of domestic violence, supported by evidence of self-injury and incitement of third parties, as evidenced by the police recording. There is no presumption of good faith here. The marriage is null and void by fraud. The court will grant Dr. Davis a divorce without any significant division of assets. He will keep the house, the assets, and most of the accounts. The money she invested, what she brought to the wedding, is what she will take if she can prove the origin. The sentence was the final blow. The judge, a woman ruthless with fraud, applied the most painful lesson. Cynthia did not earn a penny of my fortune. She left with her name tarnished, the record of a pending criminal case for false accusation and public humiliation. My revenge was not to fight, it was to let them lose alone. Her case became a case study in what not to do in divorce law. Sometimes the best answer is written in a notary's office, and in this case it was written in the cold ink of the law, confirmed by a cell phone video and signed by a judge. I was free and unharmed. Cynthia was destroyed by her own greed. If it were you, would he have let her stay on the street, or would he have forced her to face the court without legal representation?